What's up guys, Ramsey here, back for another Raid Shadow Legends video, and today we have the complete guide to destroy Hydra. I guarantee you that after this video, you will improve your teams. The goal is to help you build the best team possible for each difficulty and do the run full auto. Of course, if you play manual, you will up the damage a little bit, but the goal here is to do exactly like me, great damage, full auto run, make it as easy as possible. So what we're going to do in this video, we're going to be going over each head and see exactly what is the one important thing that they do and how to counter it. That will help us build the best team possible. And then I will show you the example of my teams to show you based on each head how I build my team to do the damage that I do. Let's get into it. Just to give you my credential, for those of you who don't know me, my name is Ramsey. I've been covering Raid for 6 years. I'm one of the oldest content creator still active on YouTube. But until about a month ago, I was doing everything in French. I've helped thousands of players progress in the game, but I've just now switched to English, and that is why you just now seeing me. I'm a endgame player, again, 6 years. I do about 600 million on Nightmare. Actually, right now, 400 and 400 on Brutal and Hard. And I'll be showing you again how I build my teams. All right, let's jump straight into it. So head of Decay. The only really important thing about this head is this ability. Remove all debuff from all heads, then fill the Terminator volets by 30%. So the easiest way to get to deal with this head is provoke, right? So in each of my teams, I have Molly here, for example, and she does place provoke. So you do want a champion that has provoke. Ideally, if you have a champion that does provoke plus other things, that would be great, of course. The goal really for this boss, it's supposed to be, Chimera is the hardest boss in the game right now, but Hydra is supposed to be the hardest boss because there's so much going on at once. So we're trying to find very versatile champions that can do a lot of things at once. And I'll be obviously showing you all of these examples, but like if you take Molly, obviously she provokes, she boosts turn meter, and she revives. That's why she's very versatile and very good for this boss. So that's it. You just want one champion to have provoke. You do have teams that don't use provoke and they deal with the fact that the head will remove the debuff at some point, and then you just have to be fast and reapply them. That's a way of doing it. But it is a bit annoying when she removes everything. Obviously, you're going to lose some damage. And then the other head can place a pretty annoying buff that we will be seeing right after. So provoke, pretty important. It will be one of the priority, something you do want in your team. Second head of Tourment, the blue head. Pretty easy to kill, actually. I think it's one of the weakest head. Very annoying because every time you hit her, she will place a fear on you. That's the only annoying thing that she does is the fear. So how do we get rid of the fear? You have two ways of doing this. I'm actually not really doing it here because I do enough damage with this team that it's not really bothering me. But the other ways, you can use someone placing Veil. So here, as you can see, I have Decay here and he have Duchess. So a hero that will place Veil. That way, when you do attack under Veil, you do not get the fear. Or another great option, you do have multiple options for that, is someone who will be cleansing debuff, so any type of cleanser. But really someone that will cleanse on a passive is even better. So you do have, in terms of legendary, you have Tyrannarak that does cleanse a debuff. So she will automatically, every time she takes a turn, in addition to the other great things that she does, she's one of the best champions for Hydra, but she will get rid of that fear for you every turn. And then in terms of epic, you have Inquisitor Shamael. He is literally the best champion to deal with that head in the game because it will remove the fear and boost the turn meter of the entire team constantly. So for that head specifically, he is really the best for that. So Veil or any type of cleanser or any of those champions that have a passive where they automatically get rid of the debuff or the fear specifically. And that is how you deal with the blue head. Again, I'll show you the teams, all the three teams at the end. Again, Nightmare obviously is going to be more of an endgame team, but Brutal and hard are a bit more accessible, but that way you'll clearly understand how I deal with each of the heads. Next up, we have the head of Mischief. She can also be a bit annoying, but there are ways of dealing with her. So why she's annoying? Because she will target the ally that has the most buff on themselves. She will steal the buff, and then the following turn, she will spread the buff on everybody else. So you have multiple ways of dealing with it. One way, not the best, but it is one way, you can let her steal whatever she wants and have someone that can remove buff or steal buff, right? So if I look at my Brutal team, for example, I have Sun Wukong. The monkey is going to be stealing all the buff. And of course, any of those examples I give you, you can do multiple in the same team. I'll be showing you example of that as well, but you can have someone that's going to steal the buff, but also someone who is going to be placing block buff, right? So you know she's going to be stealing the buff, place a block buff on the entire team, and she will steal them, but she won't be able to put them on herself. Therefore, the next turn, she won't be able to spread on the rest of the team, right? So someone like Sun Wukong, he does both. He's going to place the block buff, but he will also be stealing the buff. So that's why he's so good for Hydra, and so many players don't use him. But for this ability, it's just so good. Any buff, because also some of the heads do place reflect damage on themselves, which is very annoying. The fact that we can steal all the buff, but also place the block buff is an amazing ability. So these are two ways of dealing with that head. The third way, which again you can do with the rest, is to purposely have someone that places more buff on themselves than anybody else that have high resist. I will show you an example. And you do see him play a lot in the game in Hydra. You take Chris, for example. Chris is a great champion for Hydra because of everything that he does, but also on his A2, he will place 2 continuously heal on himself. So that is 2 extra buff that he places on himself. Another technique that we use, I don't need to in this instance, but a lot of players do it, and I used to do it, is to use a blood shield accessory. Because the blood shield, it doesn't matter how much the shield is, but the shield, every time we attack, we will place a little shield on ourselves. That's an extra buff. And that allows us to make sure that this specific head will target this champion and try to steal the buff from this champion. So for this strategy, you specifically want champion that will be placing buff and possibly at least one of the buff, or you can use that shield accessory so that they always have more buff than everybody else. High resistance, that way you make sure when the head, you always have that 3% chance, of course, to get stolen anyways, but that is why I like to do multiple of those things. So you can either go, one or the other, or do all 3 at once. Have someone placing block debuff, block buff, and stealing buff, and having someone that plays more buff on themselves with high resist. These are 3 ways of doing it, and a lot of the time, we do all 3 at the same time. For this team, for instance, I'm just using Wall Master that does place the block buff, but also it's kind of a 4th way of dealing with it. You do have champions like Lady Mikage that will decrease the duration of all enemy buff on the enemies, basically all enemies buff. So abilities like this that will reduce how long the buffs are on the enemy help as well. It's not the best, because that still give a chance for the head to spread the buff, but it does help. So all of these are ways to deal with this head specifically. Also, with Head of Mischief, something very, very important is that we do need a Hex debuff. Why? Because if we don't have a Hex debuff on her, she has 75% chance of redirecting an enemy attack. So if you're using a lot of AoE attack, it's not that big of a deal. But if you're using some more single target damage dealer, it's actually a big deal when she does swallow an ally. If you don't place X on her at that very moment, you can't really target her, and then it becomes pretty difficult to free the ally. So we do need an X debuff in the team, and also to help us do more damage overall anyway. So having either someone that places X on an ability or having it on the set, the X set is amazing. I do have the X set on AO Street, for example, here. And then on this team, I have her that has it built into a kit. And then I have the Mad Hatter right here that has it built into his kit as well. So you do have way to place the X, but the X is very important. Head of Wrath. So that one is basically the damage dealer of Hydra. It's the head that's going to be dealing the most damage. Not very annoying to deal with. She does, I believe, place some reflect damage on herself. So what we just mentioned about stealing the buff, placing a block buff will help for that as well. But really, the way we deal with this head, we don't really, we just suck it up. We just have to make sure we survive. So have some good buff on your team to survive. So increase defense, for example, strengthen. Have a reviver. I do have a reviver in each of my teams just in case, because based on the affinity, that head can kill someone pretty easily. And then if you can have decreased attack in your team, that's amazing as well to put it on everybody. You take less damage, especially from this head. So I don't believe I have a decreased attack specifically in this team. Maybe I do, but that's how you could. I don't think I need to in my teams personally, but if you do have the decreased attack, that would help a lot for sure dealing with that head. So we just want to be careful with the damage, especially when the counter. So there's a counter every time we hit her, the counter goes up. When the counter is at the max, that's when she deals extra damage. So, you know, killing her fast if possible, and then make sure we have ways to revive or survive the initial hit. That's all we can do about this head. Head of Suffering, that one is actually pretty easy to deal with. Now, she is a bit more tanky. I think she's the tankiest of the heads. One thing she's going to do as well is placing reflect damage. So, of course, your nukers might die when they're attacking her. So, again, having someone that will place a block buff or steal the buff would help a lot to avoid having that reflect damage. Also, what's important about this head is that we want to be careful because she does have a way with her A3 to get an extra turn. We don't care about anything else, honestly. She will provoke some of our allies, that's okay. But she does take an extra turn. Why that's important? Because if at some point in the run, especially towards the end, if she's one of the head that swallow one of our allies and she takes an extra turn, instead of having 2 turns to free your ally, you only have 2. You only have 1, sorry. So that's something to keep in mind. Now, the AI now does target the head that did swallow an ally. So it's a lot more auto-friendly. We can leave it auto, and if she does swallow someone, she will be targeted. But you do need to make sure you have enough damage and make sure that she does not have a bunch of buff at that very same time when she just swallowed someone. So do be careful with that. But other than that, there's nothing specifically complicated about this head. Now, head of Blight, that one does take more damage if we have HP burn. So having an HP burn in the team is good. But also what's actually very annoying is that she does place a poison cloud on everybody. Poison cloud does what? You can't really place much debuff on the enemies unless you place an HP burn. So poison cloud, the way we avoid it again is by using, we cannot steal it this time. So it's by using a block buff. So block buff again, very, very important. Again, for the head that steals everything, and for the head that will place reflect damage, and for the head of Blight to make sure we don't have that poison cloud. Do keep in mind, that is why the provoke is actually kind of important on the very first head that we saw, head of Decay, because a lot of time we will place a debuff, then the head of Decay will remove them, and then if we don't have the block buff at that very same time, a head of Suffering will place, the last head of Blight will place the poison cloud, which become very annoying. So that is why we also do want that provoke. Now that we've covered all the head, before I explain each of my team and why I use them that way, I just want to mention really quickly a few buff and debuff that are extremely important. Obviously, all the debuff we just mentioned: provoke, hex, then decrease attack. You don't need it absolutely, but if you can have it, it's great. Anything that's going to help you with the damage. So obviously decrease defense and weaken are kind of a must if you want to really get some really good damage. And then decrease speed for a long time was absolutely necessary. That's actually one of my clan member that just mentioned that to me. But something to note with the last update, and again, Hydra is always subject to change, so you do have to be careful. But when the heads come back to life, when we destroy them and they come back to life, they can have a buff that get them immune to damage for an entire turn. That is when we do not want to place the decreased speed, right? Because that means that they will keep that immunity for longer. So if you can avoid the decreased speed now, it might be best. I kind of have it in all of my teams just because of the champions I use. But if you can avoid it, try to. If not, it's still good to have it because when the heads are destroyed, that way they are a bit slower and you have more time to do the damage. But nowadays we can do so much damage so quickly that we don't necessarily need the reduced speed once the heads are dead already. So try to avoid it if you can. Other important debuff, I think that's most of it. If you have a leash, if you can place the leech debuff, amazing, very, very good. That is why I really love Neck Motor. If you have him, he's amazing. Decrease attack, decrease speed, we just mentioned it, not the best, but can still be used. Leech, and then in terms of buff, is going to be increasing the turn meter and increases speed on our team. So that's obviously very amazing, very versatile champion for that. Other debuff that's absolutely mandatory is the block buff. You do have a lot of champions doing that. If you can have a HP burn, which the Venus does here, and HP burn is great as well. Now, in terms of buff and positive effect, you want to revive in all of your team. It's not mandatory, especially if you want to do manual run. But if you're like me and you want to do it full auto and maximize your damage, you do want a reviver. You're going to want some turn meter boost if you can, some increased speed. So revive, increase speed, and turn meter boost. For me, these three are kind of like the most important. After that, anything that's going to up your damage, increase attack, increase crit rate, increase crit damage. If you can have any of those, that's great. And after that, anything that's going to help you stay alive, healing, increase defense, especially if you have defense down damage, defense-based damage dealer, strengthen, anything like that's going to help you stay alive would obviously be great. So now that you understand every heads and what they do, I just want to go through my teams really quickly. I will not be showing you now. This one is in work in progress, but these two are pretty set. I won't be doing a run and showing you all the gear in this video. In the next video, I will be showing you all the teams with all the details, all the gear, because the gear is obviously very important. So stay tuned. You will have it in a day or two. You do have a Hydra playlist on the channel if you need to. I did the very same videos for Chimera where I walk through the boss to really understand how it works so that we can build the best team possible. And then I did another video showing the Chimera team in all the details. So I will be doing the same here for Hydra. So I'm going to ignore this is my hard team. I'm kind of changing it up. So I'm going to ignore this one. For now, we'll be talking about the other two. So Brutal, we have Decay. So why is he so good? On his passive, allies under perfect veil placed by this champion deal 10% more damage. That will help the damage of course. The goal obviously is to find the perfect balance of survivability and damage while we place all the right debuff constantly. In his A2, he's going to be doing increased accuracy, increased defense, turn meter boost, and get an extra turn, or he can revive allies. So here, if no allies were revived by these skills, grant this champion an extra turn. But if not, he can revive everybody and place those buffs. And then on his A2, he has an increased attack, turn meter boost, that's what the turn meter boost is, and a perfect veil. So we do have a lot of things that we want, right? We have reviver, increased damage because of his passive when we have veil. We have the veil so that we don't get fear. We have turn meter boost, increased attack, increased damage, increased accuracy, don't need it, but it's a plus. So he does a lot of things for us, right? Then we have Archer. Archer, if you don't have her, because she was very limited, you can use Krisk or anyone that's going to be mostly placing X. That's really what we want here. I'm pretty lucky to have her. She also does a provoke, which is two debuffs that we really want. Then she heals a lot, which is great. And here she can do the decrease speed. Again, that's not, we don't really want it, but it's there, it's on a kit. So I could block the A2 if I wanted to, try that out and see if I do better damage or not. Then we have Thor. He is here just for the pure damage. He's actually a really good damage dealer if you have him. Sun Yukong, we already talked about him. He's great for damage as well. Not one of the best nukers, but mine is built for arena, so he has a bunch of damage and some accuracy. But he's really here for his A3. Again, he's going to be stealing all the buff and placing a block buff, which is amazing for this boss. Tundra, everybody knows her. She's still one of the best damage dealers, so she's just here for pure damage. And then we have Venus, who will be placing defense down and weaken and HP burn, right? So really good team here. About 400 and I think yesterday my run was 420, so not great. I'm still adjusting this one, trying to find better ways to up the damage, but it's already pretty good running full auto. I am missing an increased speed for sure, right? I don't have an increased speed in this team. That's okay for now, but I do need to change things up. Maybe use Krisk instead of her to have the increased speed. Anyways, we're always adjusting the team to do better. Now, Nightmare team, 600 million. Very proud of that one. 600 million full auto. Not a lot of players other than big, massive Kraken that have every champion in the game, plus 4 full ascension and whatnot. Not a lot of players can do 600 million on Nightmare full auto guaranteed. So the team here, we do have Lady Mikage, which a lot of you guys are going to have. We use her for the ally attack and the increased attack and increased damage. And then the extension of buff, debuff on ourselves and the enemy. Then we have Toshiro. He's just here for damage. What's great about Toshiro is obviously he will be using his A1 attacking with Lady Mikage, right? Every time she attacks, he will attack with her, and that's why they work well together. If you don't have him, use Ninja. Ninja would be amazing in this spot as well. I love Toshiro because he does play Surveillance himself, which allows us to deal with the fear. But also, he places a leech and a defense down, right? So that's why I do have some accuracy on him. You do have to keep that in mind when you build the team. And because he does place the defense down, now I know that for this team, I don't need another champion placing the defense down. I only need someone placing the weaken, right? So I do use AO Street right now, who does place a weaken on our A2 on everybody. You could also use the new champion right here, Mad Hatter. Mad Hatter does weaken and X, right? So he would be amazing for this team as well. I'm still trying him out. For now, AO Street does better for me in this team, but Mad Hatter would be amazing in this team as well. Decrease speed, we already talked about it. Not ideal, but it's there. Weaken and turn meter decrease. Sorry, that one work. I thought it was turn meter increase. The turn meter increase is right here by 15%. Increase speed, increase attack. We don't need it because we already have it with Lady Mikage, but increase speed, turn meter, and weaken. That's really what we want. And here she can heal as well a little bit. Molly, we talked about her, mostly here for the revive and the provoke. Really good, but also every time she gets hit, she fills the turn meter of all allies, which is amazing. Otorian, very happy with him. I just pulled a 5-star on him. Really great damage dealer, but also he places that block buff and the decrease attack. So extremely good for this boss, and he has AoE everywhere, and here fill this champion terminal by 5% for each living enemy after the attack. So really good champion. Mandatory debuff right here, the block buff. Increased attack, decreased attack, sorry, is obviously a bonus. Marius, easy for the damage. And of course, what's really good with Marius, full damage, but also each hit, so he attacks 3 times, each hit decrease the duration of all enemies buff. If we did get our buff stolen, and we didn't have the block buff at that time, and they got all the buff and they're spreading the buff, then Marius can come in, do his 8-2 that does all the damage, but also reduce the duration of the buff and basically remove them, because he attacks 3 times. Each hit can remove them. So most of the time he does remove them. And when I run a Nightmare, there's literally never a buff on the team on Hydra because of that. So that's why he also has some accuracy. So here we go, guys. I was just wanting to explain to you how I build the team. This one, I'm still working on it. I just need a different nuker here. I just pulled, actually, I won the tournament, and I just got the cat. I don't know where is that. I just got the cat. Here we go. I'm very happy with him. But this team, just to explain to you again, we do have Duchess that will bring block debuff, which is actually pretty good as well. But increase attack, but the Veil, right? The Veil is very important. Plus, then she can revive and heal everybody. So that's why she's so good here. Garol, she's here for pure damage. Then we have Hydra, amazing champion. I have a full guide on him, but he can do some debuff spread, hex, and weaken, and he can fill the turn meter, increase the duration of all buff, and decrease the duration of all debuff on the allies, right? And then he can heal a little bit on his passive. So amazing champion, very, very, he can do a lot of things for Hydra, and that's why he's so good, right? Because I already have a champion doing weaken, all I need now is a champion doing defense down. Hugo is perfect, defense down, but also block buff, so perfect in this team. Then we have Chris, we already talked about him, but he can provoke, does a bunch of buff that we really want, and here he can also extend the buff as well. And then the cat, it would be here mostly for damage. So here we go, guys. That's my guide. Again, I hope that was easy to understand. I hope that was clear. I will be putting all the chapters in the video so you can go back and look at each head independently. But that's what you want to do. Really look at each head and how do you deal with each of the heads. And based on that, you build your team and you try to not have multiple champions doing the same things. Like especially like I do here with Mad Hatter and Hugo, or with Toshiro and Eostrid, trying to make sure, you know, one has the defense down, the other one has the weaken. They go well together, right? So try to think about it this way when you build your team. That's it for this guide. I hope it was helpful. Sorry, I know the video was a little long. If you have any questions, put them in the comments. I'm very responsive. And in the next video, I will be showing all the details of those teams.